Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back and thank you for being here. This is part 3 or 4, I don't know, I lost track, in my sort of maker build along series with this 9-inch chef's knife. And today I'm going to be talking about tapered tangs. So there's a few reasons why we taper tangs, or why I taper my tangs. Number one, aesthetics, it just looks good. And the second reason is because it helps reduce weight in the back of the knife and helps give you a little bit more control over where the balance point is going to be. So there's a few basic things when talking about taper tangs, a few basic steps, and those would be hollowing out your handle. That way there's less surface area for you to grind down when you're tapering the tang, and then actually putting in the tapered tang, and then making sure it's nice and flat. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to mark out on the back end, on the butt of the handle, the thickness that I'm aiming for, and then I'll grind my hollows in the handle to that thickness. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, so now that I have my hollows ground out, that's going to just remove bulk of material and it's going to make the tapering easier. The next thing to do is just to take this and literally, I'm going to hold it with a magnet against my flat platen. I'll start up here and then slowly working my way down, angling it on my grinder until I reach probably somewhere right there, just beyond where the handle is going to end. So I'll probably bring my handle, usually I like to do something like that. So my handle will end here, and then I'll pull the taper tang up to there. And then I will show you how to flatten it either on disc sander or belt sander. So. that takes care of the bulk of that. The bulk of the taper. It's looking pretty good. But believe it or not, there's probably some slight uneven spots in there, some high spots, some low spots. So the next thing I'm going to do is flatten it out. This would be a good time to have something that you can test it on. Like I have this piece of marble or granite, whatever it is. I know it's flat. It's going to be probably a bit hard to see, but there's quite likely some spots in there that aren't perfect. So now all I've got to do is flatten out that tang. I don't want any gaps when I'm fitting up my handle because that could lead to some issues down the road with the wood. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can flatten the handle, and the first is going to be on the disc sander, which I think is quite a common way to do that. So I'm going to get set up and I'll show you how I flatten one side on my disc sander. Alright, so I feel like this is pretty straightforward. This is a disc sander. This disc is specifically from Beaumont Metalworks. It's not a radius disc, which means they sell one that has like a, I think like a 1% radius, so that when you cross the center, you're kind of off like a tiny bit. This one is flat all the way across, so I know this is going to give me a nice flat tang. Now what I'll do is I'll mark this up just so that we can see if there's any high or low spots and where we're uneven. So I'll give that one pass and then we'll have a look. So right away, let me turn this. So right away I can see that I'm making contact here and back here. And at these 2 points, not so much. So the idea is just to work the tang on the disc sander until I've got all these marks removed. Ideally, just like get all these 36 grit lines out of here. And that'll let me know that I have a nice flat area for my handle scales. So I'm just gonna work this on some either 120 grit, or I only have 320 grit right now, so I'm just gonna work it on some 320 grit until I get the entire thing nice and flat. And that's pretty much it for that. Another thing to note, I'm just trying to apply an even amount of pressure all the way across the tang. I don't want to dig into this corner here especially. So one thing that I like to do is I'll put pressure up here at the end and sort of slide it up. That way I'm not digging in and creating another dip up here by the handle. Alright, now this is the second method that I like to use to flatten out my tangs. The only problem is this needs to be a flat surface. And the way that I flatten this is on my disc sander. I think you can get, if I'm not mistaken, you can get glass that goes on top of this. You're gonna have a bit better results with glass because when you put pressure from grinding on these platens, you can dig in and create high and low spots, and that'll translate into your work. So if you've seen my other video, you know I like to use this same method to flatten and true up my bevels. It's essentially the same. I'm just using it to flatten my tang. So I'll go lengthwise and sort of almost hang the front just off the edge of the platen, but because I don't want to bring the taper too far up, and that can happen using this method. And I mean, that's pretty much it. So essentially the same as the disc sander. I'm just gonna apply as much of an even pressure as I can and slowly work it so that the entire thing is flat. Again, this has to be, you have to know that this is a flat surface. Just be mindful of that. I'm gonna be going with the 60 grit belt here because 36 is just gonna be too aggressive at this point. And I don't wanna screw up. If I do screw up the tang, I don't wanna screw it up too bad, and 60 grit is gonna be a little bit more forgiving than the 36. Alright guys, there you have it. That is how I taper my tang on my knives 2 different ways. And that is all I have for you for this one. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Sound like an answering machine on a phone. If not, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.